Okay, there's a topic that I wanted to come up and talk about um, because I think there are a lot of assumptions being done on both sides. Oh, by the way, this is Outdoor Nature Adventure Ministry, and my goal is to inform and to tell about things that God shows me. And that guy is my dog, that's Tobias, and that is Moose, that's my dad's dog. But I thought this relevant because I find it very interesting that we're making a distinction, which was clearly not supposed to be between Jew and Gentile. There are cultural and religious things that are different, and I want to go over them. What I find interesting is there are definitely a lot of assumptions being made on both sides, um, and they don't believe. And I can understand if you're not like a serious Christian and not like into the Bible and know the lineages and that type of thing. You would probably be like, yeah, they're right. But if you look into it and realize, hey, well, we're actually more alike than you think. Um, I was grown up in the Presbyterian Church, which is a denomination based off the Roman Catholic Church, which I find interesting. Um, but sorry, my dog is distracting me. He just grabbed a stick. Um, but it was a Roman Catholic church, and I find a lot of interesting. I mean, there's different church denominations, and for whatever reason, they break off of one another. I mean, and they don't recognize each other. But but my goal today is to show the similarities of Jew and Gentile, um, because if we both are going to heaven, and I don't know this, if Jews think that we're going to the same heaven or not. I've never known a Jew. Um, However, I was shown recently. I was told to look at my name a little more carefully, and it has Dan in the name, in my last name. And so God basically showed me that I am a part of the tribe of Dan, even though I didn't know it. But the circumcision is something that Abraham was told to do as a way of showing um, as a way of showing that you're an Israelite and that you're under the covenant of God. And it's like within 8 days of them like converting, I guess, to the Jewish religion. Um, and what I find really interesting, though, um, is I was watching a Jewish rabbi claiming that God wouldn't dare come to this earth and and be a part of it. But if that's the case, then why do they believe that a Messiah is going to come? They're kind of contradicting themselves in a way. And also, if you look at the Bible, there are many references and you can look it up. It's like look at the um, just type in Jew versus Gentile in the Google search, and you will see that there are many different references in the Old Testament referring to a basically Jesus or a person called Emmanuel, born of a virgin, born in the city of Bethlehem, who came to be the King of the Jews, who was going to be hung on a cross, and like Micah 5, 2 through 4, it says, "Too little to be among clans of Judah. From you I will come forth for me to be ruler in Israel." um, Israelites are Judaism, and so they are from the tribe of Judah. And it says clearly that that Jesus would come from the clan of Judah, which he did. He also, and if you look at the lineage, it's clearly is Adam and Eve, and then it goes to, and I know I'm skipping a lot, like Abraham, and it goes to Moses, and it goes to David, and Jacob, and so it basically goes through all these lineages, and then it went to Mary, the mother, Mary and Joseph, who were the son, were the father and mother of Jesus Christ. But if you look at the lineages, it's clear that there's this lineage going from Abraham all the way to Jesus, and so and then Isaiah 7:14, it says, "Give you a sign, behold, a virgin will conceive," and it goes on, and that's the Old Testament saying that there'll be a virgin that will conceive, and that was Mary. Numbers 24:17 says, "Descendant of Jacob," which he was. And then you have Isaiah 40 pointing to Jesus. You have Isaiah 11 pointing to Jesus. What I find very interesting is they call Isaiah 53 the forbidden chapter. And if you look at Isaiah 53, the reason why it's called forbidden is because false prophets have come to this world and said, hey, you can't read this. It's kind of like telling Christians not to read like the Apocrypha. It's like, okay, well, don't read this, even though if you look at the authorized version of King James Bible, there's 80 books, but now we only have 66 books, which I find really interesting considering the beast number is 666. So they took out books of the Bible, like Judith and Esdras and Baruch and Jasher and Jubilees and all these others. But I find it very interesting that Jewish culture is doing the exact same thing. So obviously there's some false prophets being in there. So there's definitely some major cultural differences. They believe in having all food that's kosher. They have to pray over it and make sure that it was clean and made in the right way. And kosher means clean. And so there are certain animals that are kosher and are not kosher. Like they don't eat pork. They don't eat like hawk. Well, it says not to eat hawks or owls. It says also not to eat like shrimp or crustaceans. It also says not to eat. Let's see what else. Not to eat any type of rodent or mammal. It says that you can eat like deer, conies? But yes, you can eat goat, you can eat like chicken and turkey, but not vultures. So there are definitely some kosher stuff. And I find it interesting though that also they have one person mentioned wearing stuff. The only thing that, and I think it's called a yarmulke, that little hat thing that goes on their head. I mean, that's the only thing that I see differently that they wear. Because if you look at the Christian culture, I mean, there are like shawls and stuff that have the little threads, or what are those things? Like tassels at the end of them. But I mean, most of it, they claim that there's stuff that's worn differently, which I don't see. There are traditions of man that have come out that that have been pushed that is not biblical, and that may be the distinction. It's like, okay, well, there's these things that these false prophets have implemented that are not biblical. So yes, I can see wearing stuff differently there. Sorry, I thought I heard something. But Jews have a religious cultural group with shared history. Gentiles don't obviously have this. They don't have a tie to the 12 tribes of Israel. However, they do have a tie. And if you go back far enough, you have Adam and Eve who conceived everything. And then you also have like Jacob, which brought forth, but there was obviously more people. And then everyone was killed, and then you have Noah. So everyone had to have come from both Adam and Eve and Noah, because everyone else was killed. There's no other way possible for anyone else to live. So Jews and Gentiles both came from the same place. And Gentiles are, I mean, it's almost like they fell away kind of thing. um, and so, but Jews considered to be descended from the patriarch of Israel, which is Abraham and Jacob and Moses. So, and Gentiles worship Jehovah. Um, and it is true that we give, that Christianity gives more preference to Jesus or Yeshua. I call him Yeshua, that's his Hebrew name, than they do to God. But in the New Testament it says that Yeshua is the image of God, because he basically said, I am God, because it's 3 in 1. The Holy Spirit and Yeshua and God are all tied together. And because we're made in the image of God, we have that same energy as well in us. And I believe that we're tied to that energy, especially if you've given your life over to Him. And so they're still waiting on a Messiah to come back, and that's why they're going to be heavily deceived by the Antichrist. And I found it interesting. There was a guy by the name, I don't know when he appeared. His name was Rael, and he showed up on the scene at one of the Jewish festivals, and I saw a video of it, and I don't know how accurate it is or who he is, but they were kissing his ring, and he knew a whole lot, and so yeah. But the Jews were from one transcendent God. Jews were His chosen ones. The thing is chosen ones comes up in other places. That it talks about God's chosen ones, and it doesn't just refer to like Israel chosen ones. It refers to also chosen ones as his people. Because when Jesus or Yeshua came back, he chose he said there is no more Jew and Gentile. We're all one family, and if you believe that Jews and Gentiles go to heaven and share that same thing, then why wouldn't we have communion and worship together in that sense? And so the chosen one references are Isaiah 42:1. Matthew 22:14, Colossians 3:12-17, 1 Corinthians 8:6, Deuteronomy 7:6, and that's that Deuteronomy 7:6 is where God said that the Israel people were His chosen ones, and they inherited the land of milk and honey. So there's also Ephesians 1:4, and 1 Chronicles 16:13 refers to the Israelites as well. But Noah had 3 sons, as I said earlier. But there were multiple times where God cursed. He cursed Canaan. He was a Jew, and he came out from one of Noah's sons. I believe it was Ham, and God cursed him and his lineage. He also cursed Esau, and he also cursed. Let's see, who was the other one? He cursed Cain's lineage. But I believe that Cain's lineage died in the flood. So it's mainly Esau that has a cursed lineage. But yes, there were many Jews back in the day, and you can see a definite where one chosen person was kind of guided the rest, and like many times in 1 Kings and 2 Kings and Chronicles, you can see how many times the Israelite people turned away from God, and God had to raise up a righteous person in order to guide them many different times. And so they fell away many different times, and believed different things and worshipped idols and believed in the world. So, but but in the New Testament, it says, does it not say that there will no longer be Jew or Gentile, Greek or Roman, slave or free? I mean, there's clearly a verse that does that. Jew equals Judaism, and basically Jews were either converted or descended from the Israelites. So what I find interesting is back then they can convert to Jews, but now because like it's almost like, okay, well, you can't convert to Jewish. Well, I don't know. I mean, I think there are ways of becoming a Jew, but you have to go through all this different things, and there's traditions of man that they're putting forth now. But we are one people, and we believe in the same God. And there are verses that show that Jesus or Yeshua was around in the time of Abraham and further back. I mean, he's always been up there with God. It's just he chose to come out during the New Testament. And all this can be found in the Dead Sea Scrolls. I mean, we have all this evidence in the Dead Sea Scrolls and other ancient texts that support this. And you have to, and Jews think that you have to be raised Jewish in order to be Jews and observe the practices of their ancestors. The practices of their ancestors are sacrifices. So you do burnt offering sacrifices, you do sin offerings, you do all the feasts, you worship on the Sabbath. And what I find interesting is if they want to practice their cultural stuff, then why are they not doing the sacrifices anymore? Because I mean, there were daily sacrifices and sin offerings and all these other offerings, and I haven't seen one Jew doing a sacrifice. So if they're following the sacrificial stuff, they're not following it. Because the ultimate sacrificial lamb was Jesus Christ, who came back. And I find it interesting that the Jews no longer practice the sacrifices. I mean, I think they kind of do along the lines of the feasts, but there were sin offerings and there were daily offerings. And I mean, if you look at Leviticus and Deuteronomy and all these others, it clearly points to sacrifices, which they're clearly not doing. I've never seen any videos or anything anywhere suggesting that they've and I think it's because some Jewish rabbi or group of rabbis said, oh, well, we can do away with this. And I don't know what, I mean, but I don't know. I haven't researched that, but I find it very interesting. But supposedly Gentiles are the nations and we eat very differently. Because what we read, it says that nothing that goes in the mouth can harm us, but what comes out of the mouth. So sin and lust and anger and wrath come out of the mouth, not into it. And there are several verses that are throughout the New Testament that hint to that there is nothing unclean anymore. And I don't remember which book of the Apocrypha this is in, but one of the books of the Apocrypha clearly goes through the different animals, the unclean animals, and refers them to different groups of people. And it's basically, God works in allegories in a lot of the Bible, and he used allegories for the animals as well. Yes, there are a lot of animals that you shouldn't eat because they have different things in them. Like there's a lot of fluke worms and parasites in pork, and that's why you don't eat it. And the Gentiles supposedly didn't have access to the knowledge of God, which is horse crap, because everyone had access to it. It's just the Gentiles didn't follow it because they worshiped the world. And in a way, the Jews kind of, I mean, it's almost like, okay, well, we're better than you, and kind of thing. However, I mean, I would say all of the Old Testament, I mean, it's I believe a lot of people joined the Jews if they wanted to, and there are many times where Jacob and Joshua and all these others conquered different lands, and they gave the people the option. It's like, okay, you can join us, but you would have to get circumcised. So there are many people in the Old Testament that flat out gave themselves to Judaism, and that was from God. That I didn't know until God. But yes, there are converts. There's Rahab, and there's other people that joined, and they followed the law of the Israelites. But I mean, there was definitely a time when God didn't want His people joining with Canaanites or Moabites or Amorites and Samaritan, because he deemed them as sinful people, and He was trying to keep His people as clean as possible from the sin of the world. And He asked Saul and others to destroy everything that they conquered, men, women, kids, beasts, and He didn't do it. That's why David came into power and beat Goliath, was because Saul didn't follow through. Because if he did follow through with what he was supposed to have done to begin with, he would have given Goliath into the hands of Saul. Instead, Saul broke his commands, and God took His favor and His leadership away from him and anointed David the new king. And Jews are pushing that we have to be cleansed of our old selves, and even though that Jesus claims, well, I mean, it's not claims, he fulfilled the sin law, and he took every sin on Him. And yes, you are supposed to ask for forgiveness and repentance, and you are cleansed of your iniquities because of Yeshua or Jesus. And so that is our way of cleansing. Because in the olden day, they had to cleanse themselves by having sacrifices. And yet again, I mean, it's like, okay, well, I don't see that in the Jewish culture. It's like, okay, well, I don't know how they claim that people are cleansed from their sins if they don't have a person that cleanses them. Because I can guarantee you, Jews as well as us mess up. I mean, there are Jews out there doing bad things, just like all the Christians doing bad things. I mean, we all mess up. We all fall short. I mean, God clearly says in the New Testament that everyone has fallen short of the glory of God. And everyone means everyone, Jew and Gentile. It doesn't mean, okay, well, this is just a Jewish thing, or this is just a Gentile thing. It's like, nope, everyone's under that. So yeah. I mean, Jesus, I mean, God saw what was coming, and that's why He made Jesus come down, is because He saw how bad it would get in the end. He saw how people would turn away from Him and sin, and the only way that He could save people from their sin was to have Jesus come to the earth, or Yeshua come to the earth. But there are man-made traditions and festivals on both sides. Hanukkah is not in the Bible at all. It is a festival that was imposed by Jews because of the candles going out. I don't know what the exact thing is, but there was a time when I guess they needed light, and so it was their way of celebrating it. But yes, there are definitely false prophets on both sides. But I do know from my researching and whatever that that I'm looking for the truth. I'm looking for for the right way that all of us are supposed to celebrate and be biblical and that type of thing. Don't do that. So I want to make sure that I'm doing the right thing before God, and that means following His commands, both Old Testament and New Testament. And false prophets and others have misled people, and Jews are making assumptions, and Christians have made assumptions on both sides. And I can only look at what I've been given, and look at the old texts and look at the old authors as well as the new authors, and see, okay, well, this is and God has been guiding me and having me discern what this stuff says. I look at all the teachings, both past and present. I look at the Apocrypha, and I have to go with what I know and what I've been shown in the books that are revealed to me to look at. So, and that's what I do. Not many Christians take it to the point I do, and I believe we also have to get away from this fleshly world, both Jew or Gentile. We have to turn off the TV. We have to turn off everything else, because I mean, if you look around, can you tell the difference between Jew and Gentile? I can't, unless they wear their hat, which a lot of the Jews don't. They don't choose to wear the hat unless certain events or whatever. So yes, there have been many years for the teachings and different ways of living, and I just wanted to go through. But I want you to type in Jew versus Gentile and look up how many prophetic things have been answered with Jesus. I want you to look at Isaiah 53, and the other. I mean, Isaiah is chock full of references towards the coming Messiah, and I think partly what it is they wanted a conquering Messiah that would take names and boot everyone out, and be this great king that they could follow. And the reason why kings and that type of thing came about is because that's what people wanted. They're like, well, we want a king. We don't, I mean, because the priests and that type of thing, the Levites were in charge of everything, and they didn't want the priests, or I don't know what, but yeah, they basically just wanted a king. So God gave them kings, which led them down the wrong paths many times. So yeah. But yes, so yes, I'm no expert, but I just wanted to point these different things out. You can come from different backgrounds and be converted to whatever, but you just got to watch these man-made traditions. But we are all, I mean, whoever gives their life fully over to Jesus and forgives and forgets and repents of what they've done, if you go solely to God or Yeshua or whatever, and truly repent, if you fast and pray and do all that, I believe you're saved. And so, I mean, we are one body. There's not a Jewish heaven and a Christian heaven. There's one heaven that we all have to get along with. So yeah, thank you for joining me. Thank you for subscribing, and I only try to reveal the truth, and this is what God wanted me to reveal, so this is what I'm doing. Have a good, blessed day, and I encourage you all to keep researching, keep looking into the Word, and keep praying, and ask God for discernment as to what to do and where to go. Bye.